Clerk, please read the roll.
Adel.
Here.
Avedisian.
Here.
Buell.
Here.
Camilleri.
Here.
Curry.
Here.
DeBella.
Here.
Gardeau. Hall.
Here.
Healy. Hoffman.
Here.
Holloway. Yono.
Here.
LaChance.
Here.
LeBeau.
Here.
Lester.
Here.
Magnan.
Here.
Maniscalco. Mandyke.
Isn't she on the phone?
Potentially going to call in. Murata.
Here.
Payne.
Here.
Patel.
Here.
Salemi.
Here.
Solomonides. Sweezy.
Here.
Taylor. Vecino. Carrier. We have a quorum.
Okay, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
They're voting tonight. Good.
Okay. Pass this on. Approval of the minutes of February 10th, 2020. Is there a motion to adopt? Been moved and seconded. Are there any additions or deletions? Being there none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Is there any abstentions?
No.
No one's here? Okay. Public comments relative to agenda items, items 5.
I've got a list. Do you want me to
Yeah.
go by names?
Yeah. I believe there's a list. Would you explain the rules?
All speakers will have 3 minutes. If you could please state your name and address for the record. We'll give you a warning as your time is approaching, and please conclude your comment when asked to do so. Senator Saad Anwar.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Senator Saud Anwar. I am honored to represent East Hartford, which is the member town, South Windsor, which is a non-member town, as well as Ellington and East Windsor. Chairman DeBella and the honorable members of MDC, thank you so much for allowing me to speak. I know everybody is a volunteer, and I truly appreciate you giving your time in a challenging situation from financial perspective. I know about your decisions that you are looking into. I just want to make 2 points. One is that I know there's a financial responsibility that you all have to look at the sustainability of MDC and financial sustainability. I would just ask that when we are going to deal with another entity which is going to buy and take water from us, as from our state, that the price should be the same that the people are paying. And it's just a fair thing to ask because all the towns are actually the number one and the largest customer, and we want that the customers to pay the lowest price, and if anybody else is going to use a volume benefit, we actually can at least say that they'll get the same price as our number one customer. And the second thing is, I know that the theoretical possibility of drought is low, but when we make policies, it's okay to have protections in place, and I would just say that if, God forbid, there's ever a drought or challenge that we have with the resources, and I know the probabilities are very low, but they're not zero. In that case, I just want to make sure that the people of the state of Connecticut will be priority number one in that situation. And again, I just want to put these 2 thoughts for you to think about and hopefully support. And I again want to thank all of you for the work that you do as volunteers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person.
Deborah Levine.
Good evening. I simply want to state that the large user discount that is proposed makes no sense from a business standpoint. Giving a discount such as 50% to a company that has an annual revenue of over $50 million just to get them to buy more water leaves a lot of money on the table. And even the independent consumer advocate said that it was not a responsible decision on your part. From an environmental standpoint, promoting the production of more single-use plastics when China, as everyone knows today, is no longer accepting our recyclables further burdens our broken-down waste management system, bringing it closer to the breaking point, and is simply irresponsible. Moreover, in my opinion, Niagara should be forced to pay towards the recycling costs of your member towns. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, he's next. Dr. Mark Mitchell.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the MDC. I'm Dr. Mark Mitchell. I'm a Hartford resident. I'm also a member of the Hartford Advisory Commission on the Environment, and I'm an advisor, the founder and advisor for the Connecticut Coalition for Environmental Justice, and as well as the Clean Water Connecticut. We have a petition from Hartford residents, and in the last 2 days, we've gotten over 100 signatures, and I'd like to read that to you. It says, give MDC water and sewer discounts to residents, not to corporations. This is an open letter to Chairman DeBella, CEO Jellison, and Hartford MDC commissioners and members, Avery Bull, Georgina Holliday, David Ayano, Alphonse Murata, Linda King-Corbin, and Hector Rivera. We, the undersigned Hartford residents, ask you to oppose corporate giveaways, which are likely to further raise Hartford water rates. While Hartford residents are suffering from another recent 13% water rate increase, the MDC has proposed giving one corporation, Niagara Bottling, a high-volume discount of nearly 50% on combined water and clean water project charge rates. It's time to say no to what could amount to a full corporate giveaway of nearly $2.6 million per year. We urge you to say no on proposed revision to the Water and Sewer Ordinance WA1 and S12K. As a Hartford resident, I live in a condominium, yet every month I pay $125 to $150 for water alone. It's the largest expense for me and all of the 65 other units in our condominium complex, the Maple Avenue Mews. We are very much concerned about the high rates for water in the city of Hartford and among our residents, and we ask that you not give a giveaway to corporations. It can only increase the rates for the other residents. If as MDC says, the water is so clean and pure, which I have no reason to doubt, that should be enough to attract other bottlers if that's what you want. But obviously, we believe we're concerned about one-use throwaway bottles, the use of throwaway bottles, and how it contributes to the litter in the cities, how it contributes to the amount of plastic that's burned in the trash incinerator where we breathe, where we know, where our studies show that are related to the high rates of asthma that we suffer
time is up. Please conclude your comment.
in Hartford. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Judy Allen.
My name is Judy Allen from West Hartford. While I'm part of Save Our Water Connecticut, I'm going to remove my blue button because I don't want you to let it get in the way of what I have to say. I am speaking to you tonight as a customer who has consistently attended most MDC meetings. I'm also a member of the Central Water Utility Coordinating Committee, or the WUC, representing a small community water company. I volunteered to serve on a WUC subcommittee charged with implementing their coordinated water system plan. I attended meetings for development of the Connecticut State Water Plan as well, and I'm proud my name appears as a contributor to its creation. I've attended meetings of the CWWA Subcommittee on Source Water Protection and attended a training on watershed inspection. I attend most Water Planning Council and their advisory group meetings. I have been to PURA public hearings about water utility issues, and I've read Water for Hartford. This may not mean I'm an expert, but it does mean my comments are informed. I've consistently supported that water rates should reflect the true value of delivering clean, safe drinking water to all, and I expect water revenues to be used responsibly to ensure the ongoing health of the MDC. When I say the true value of water, I'm not just referring to the running of a water utility. Excuse me. I believe that access to water at an affordable price is a human right. I mean that water has value outside of its benefit for human consumption. I've watched what I believe is lack of long-term planning. Everything becomes crisis management. The one thing that has changed since discounts were first discussed is you are now even deeper in a financial crisis. Steps could have been taken to create a rate structure affordable for all, ensuring the ongoing viability of the MDC, and create industrial rates to benefit many, not just one, and bring many new good-paying jobs for your customers. In other meetings, there is no video camera rolling, but tonight there is. Tonight, I ask that your vote on these rates be a roll call vote. For transparency, I believe your customers deserve to know why you vote the way you do. Let your customers know if you favor bringing more large volume water bottlers to the district. Tell your customers if you believe environmental concerns can't be part of a business decision. There have been many thoughtful, informed, and yes, impassioned comments that may differ from your own, but they deserve to be heard. Thank you.
Alicia Sharamut.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for allowing the public to comment tonight. My name is Alicia Sharmut. I'm the Executive Director of Rivers Alliance of Connecticut. I'm also an MDC customer residing in Newington. I am also the co-chair of the Water Planning Advisory Group. I was on the policy subcommittee that helped develop the state water plan. So not only am I an MDC customer, I'm an educated MDC customer, and I work with water utilities on a regular basis to find solutions to some of the problems that we have. And one of the things that's important to mention is that the state is moving forward on trying to solve the problem of conservation creating revenue or creating issues for water companies. When revenue drops, you all still have the same bills to pay. And I can appreciate that because this is happening across the state. This is not just an MDC issue. So the Alliance for Water Efficiency is going to be working with the Water Planning Council to find solutions so that all water utilities, even hopefully regional water utilities like the MDC, find a solution to this. And I will say that I don't believe that this discount for Niagara is a solution to MDC's revenue woes. In addition to that, I have a few questions to pose to you. I submitted comments during the public comment period, so I'm not going to go through all of those items. But I want to ask you all, as an MDC customer, do you have all the information you need to make the decision before you tonight? Did you carefully consider the comments submitted by the public? Did you carefully consider the comments of Mr. Silverstone, the independent consumer advocate, which the legislature, the General Assembly said was needed in this instance, who did his own independent analysis and submitted it as public comment? Do you feel with 100% certainty that this ordinance change before you tonight will result in a rate reduction for all other customers? And have you been presented with the facts to support that? Could you look in the eyes of the people who were at the public hearing, who begged you to support this rate change because they want lower rates, and tell them with absolute certainty that their bills are going to go down? If you answered no to any of these questions, you should not vote in favor of this ordinance change tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Karen Hatcher?
A lot of microphones here. Good evening. My name is Karen Hatcher. I reside in Windsor, Connecticut, and I'm here to urge the MDC board to vote no on the ordinance to provide a so-called economic development rate for high-volume consumers. I have yet to see any facts or numbers to justify the belief that this is, in fact, the best way forward. To my knowledge, no one has put forward a detailed analysis or facts that the projected revenue will in fact be generated. As of today, the only entity which qualifies for this discount is Niagara, but no one has offered up an analysis of the elasticity of Niagara's demand for water. To the contrary, last year's records seem to indicate that their consumption does not fluctuate significantly without the discount. In other words, they exceeded the $600,000 amount for 7 months last year. I've not heard any discussion as to whether this is the only proposal which will result in greater revenue, such as no discount, or a sliding scale discount, or some other variation. So this raises to me several questions. Has any evaluation been done of any alternative proposals? And what are they? Has anyone had discussions with or negotiations with Niagara about their consumption? I recognize that the general tone of these public meetings has been one of significant frustration. And I'm sure that for all of you, this is not easy to be a part of, because I really do believe that you are trying to solve a financial problem. But I also believe that a large number of the opponents are thoughtful, intelligent, and concerned. I believe that the frustration on the part of the public is due in part to the fact that, to my knowledge, no one has ever stated publicly that they understand the concerns of the public, that they have addressed these issues or considered their merits, or asked for any one of us to participate meaningfully in drafting solutions. I will state for the record, however, that the Windsor Commissioner, John Avedisian, and I have had very good conversations. So from what I've observed, the commissioners and their staff do not appear to have a finger on the pulse of the public. We are one that is concerned about climate change, individual income inequality, and also excessive private corporate profits propped up by government and public largesse, which, if I may be so candid, and I'm sorry to have to say this, but it comes across as arrogant, patronizing, and disrespectful. It does not create an atmosphere conducive to civil, productive discussion. I also believe that at least some of your current leadership does not generate a sense of trust, and this is a poor combination for generating public support. I believe the MDC is never going to have the support for this kind of proposal without meaningful citizen input, where you are transparent about processes, policies, and analyses, and at least voice an understanding of the concern of those on this side of the dais.
Your time's up. Please
All right.
finish your comment.
I just believe that the best way forward is to vote no and immediately create a process whereby those of us here, River Alliance, Save the Water, come together to come up with a solution.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick Hatcher?
Good evening. My name is Patrick Hatcher. I live in Windsor. I've attended several of these over the years, and the level of discourse has gotten coarse and unhappy. And I've spoken with several MDC folks, and I can see their frustration because they have a real problem. And they're doing their absolute level best to address that problem. For example, in cutting costs and so forth. But at the same time, we're faced with a situation where senior management doesn't realize the paradigm shifted under their feet. You don't have to give big discounts to large corporations. Does anybody here seriously think that Niagara is going to get up and leave if they don't get this discount? They've got a big facility. They've been buying more than 600,000 gallons a day. And I've been told by MDC there's no direct negotiations with Niagara. So I would say to you, don't give up. Don't give them the discount. They're not entitled to it. Because I'll tell you this, in addition to not having enough revenue, what you see here is a real deficit in trust and good faith, which is tragic because there's some extraordinarily good people involved in this process. You need to make it clear that we are being heard. Does anybody seriously think that Niagara is going to bail? No. We're going to be faced with an additional increase in the very near future because you've got that $7 billion judgment supposedly coming down. So that's going to result in increased rates. Why give the money away? And your difficult circumstances, according to the current anyway, have gotten more difficult because now the legislature is looking at this. And so, good people working for nothing, trying to do the right thing. Well, the right thing here is to recognize that you don't have to give volume discounts. Frankly, I don't care that in the abstract, New Haven is there potentially to give a bigger deal, because guess what? Niagara isn't going to move there. Please vote no and do your level best to regain the trust and the goodwill of the citizens who, on balance, recognize your extraordinary efforts to try and deal with difficult circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Hope?
Hi, my name is Don Hope, and I basically have a question to ask. There's a giant tunnel being drilled under Hartford and West Hartford from the vicinity of the Colt Building north, I believe, and it's storage. It's like a big rain barrel. I'm wondering if that project is over budget or under budget.
This is a public hearing. Go ahead.
Well, is the project...
It's within budget.
It's within budget. Okay, thank you.
Valerie Rossetti?
Hi, I have a plastic water bottle.
Yeah, well, you filled it with our water, right?
I don't know, I hope so, it's such good water. But I'm Valerie Rossetti from Bloomfield, and I'm talking this night about the economics that I'm concerned about of this. First of all, it's not a true economic development rate. I think everybody recognizes that. It only applies to an already established user, not a new user. And it's designed for a large user with just 1 meter. Now, the economic development rate in South Central Regional is for new users. It's only 20%, not 50%. It's for any type of industry that uses 500,000 gallons of water a day. I'm sorry, a year, not a day. And it goes away after 5 years. So that's not what we're talking about tonight. The other thing is, I just want to see if it's clear to all of you that the price of the product that Niagara is doing is really not dependent on the actual cost of the MDC water. So this is 16.9 ounces, and the amount of the water cost in the bottle is less than 1/10 of 1 cent. Okay, now if you went to the store and you got 24 of these in one of those big packs, the amount of water in the 24-pack is .004 CCF. We always hear the CCF word thrown around. It's less than 3 cents for a product that's, if you got it on sale, maybe it's $2.50. So the price of the water in these products is less than 1% of the price of the product. Now, most of you are astute businessmen, I assume. So the assumption that the price of the water is what's driving the decision to expand, I think, is a false one. The next third point I want to make is Niagara is already a profitable company. Sorry, I have to read this. So last July, the beverage industry reported that the dollar sales of private label PET bottled still water, that's what we have here, increased 12.6%. And according to Mr. Jellison's figures, in the PowerPoint he released last week, Niagara revenues increased to MDC by over almost $400,000 from 2018 to 19. That's a 64% increase with no discount. I don't think it's an economically challenged industry. The next thing I want to comment about is, according to Mr. Jellison's PowerPoint, you could be leaving $2.6 million a year of revenue on the table if Niagara maximizes its output without discounts. That's a heck of a lot of money. That's per year, year after year. Your subsidy for the water assistance program is $50,000. Okay, I will thank you for one extra sentence. This is an unnecessary corporate discount. Economically struggling households need discounts, not corporations.
Thank you. Tolly Miller?
Hello, I'm Tolly Miller from Bloomfield, and I'm actually reading a statement tonight from two Hartford council people, Councilwoman Wildelise Bermudez and Councilman McTom. And also, before I read that statement, I just want to say that Beth Kerrigan wanted to be here, but sadly her mother passed last week, so she's not able to be here. But she just wanted us to say again that she is very much against the discounts. You've heard her speak eloquently here before, so I'm sure you remember her. So this is the statement from two council people from the Hartford City Council. The constituents of the City of Hartford deserve a transparent and regulated public utility that works to protect and preserve our drinking water system, and not an opaque organization that seeks to privatize and sell our water. The MDC's lack of clarity and honesty in its dealings harms our communities, especially when it does things like secretly and suddenly deciding to cut almost $650,000 in contributions to riverfront recapture. But more troubling is the mismanagement, like losing a $7.7 million verdict for overcharging suburban customers, that leads the MDC to make decisions based on monetary desperation, now charging us an additional 13.5% on water instead of sound public policy. MDC's entrance into the plastic business of bottling water was questionable from the start. Last week in San Francisco, consumers filed a class action lawsuit against the largest corporate sellers of plastic bottles for causing invasive pollution and environmental destruction. The future of the plastic water bottle business is not as stable as MDC wants us to believe. At a time when regional organizations should be planning for climate change, and when we should be working to eliminate reliance on plastics, given the exorbitant cost increase in trash hauling, coupled with our inability to recycle plastics, MDC cannot be allowed to double down on a really bad bet. It is time for new, transparent, and open management at MDC. Thank you.
Kevin McClary?
Good evening, Commissioners. Kenneth McClary, Bloomfield, former town council member in Bloomfield. I first want to say thank you for your time and your service to the district. These decisions are very, very hard decisions to make, crunching the numbers, looking at the return on investment, looking at infrastructure when the federal government is sending all these mandates down to municipalities and to boards like yourself without funding. However, when I served on the Bloomfield Town Council, canvassing in the town of Bloomfield, there are a number of people in the town currently still hurting and can't afford to pay their bills. And they're ratepayers. And you say that it's going to go down 22%. Could you guarantee that the water rates will go down if you give this discount? I'm personally against it. If you're confident in your assessment, lower the rates now. People are really, really hurting to pay their water bill. The NAACP a couple of years ago released a report on water affordability, and it's saying that it is the new civil rights. It is a civil rights issue on folks being able to afford access to clean water and sewer. They did the study, and they looked at Michigan, and they looked at Ohio. And I would advise every commissioner in here to look at that report and read it. It's about 168 pages, and it details the crisis of water affordability. And I hope moving forward that your decision-making puts the people and your ratepayers first and not corporations, because usually what corporations do is the fear tactic. Oh, if you don't give us this discount, we're going to move and go to another city and pit us against each other. I know some of the commissioners I spoke to, my commissioner, Mr. Lesser, thank you for your time. It's good for East Hartford. You know, some folks say it's good for East Hartford, but if it's good and it's going to lower the rate, put it in a resolution and show people that you are transparent with lowering their rates. Thank you.
I don't have anyone else that's signed up. Is there anyone else that would like to provide public comment? Go ahead. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hi, I'm John Capadonna. I'm a retired internist from Simsbury. I live in Bloomfield now. I'd like to know from MDC, I'm sure you've had these discussions, is Niagara planning on doing anything about stopping its use of plastic rather than going ahead, such as the coal industry? People are making plans for when that will no longer be a viable option. What are we doing with plastic? What is Niagara doing with that? Have any of you had that conversation with Niagara, their long-term use, or is it just going to continue to be more plastic? Anyone? No?
This is a time for
This is
public
a time
comment.
for your
We're not
public
going to answer
comment.
questions.
Well, the comment is, if they're not, they should be.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any further speakers? Not, the public portion is closed. Report from the chairman, pass on that tonight. Report from the chief executive officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to make my monthly report brief tonight. I'm going to focus mainly on the economic development rate, but I would like to mention the fact that the MDC, I did send out an email today. We did receive over the weekend letters of support from the mayor of West Hartford regarding the integrated plan, and very importantly, the grant and loan percentages, the 40 to 50% grant that we need necessary to make the integrated plan affordable. And also supporting the monies owed to the MDC by the state of Connecticut DEEP for the discharge of contaminated groundwater to the landfill of $13 million, which includes 2020. So we have received 4 towns, Rocky Hill, Newington, East Hartford, West Hartford. I believe from Commissioner's statements tonight, Weathersfield is voting tonight, and we should be receiving letters of support from Weathersfield sometime tomorrow. We've been talking a lot about the economic development rate, and I have heard and I have talked to a lot of the people voting or supporting against the discount. I, myself, nor the board, nor the MDC staff, we understand your passion, we understand your concerns. We're not trying to dismiss your concerns. We do have a budgetary issue, like all water utilities, and I think one of the gentlemen mentioned, we've been talking about this for years now, that the water industry is losing anywhere from this year's average was 3.6%. We hit the average, 3.6% reduction in volume of sales of water. So we are the poster child of what's happening in the industry. We have talked a lot, and I do have a presentation that I had given at the public hearing last Wednesday to the Committee on Government. And Nikki, I'm going to give the same presentation. I have added some information that Ms. Rossetti asked. She didn't feel like we clarified a question that she had, so I've added some information. But really important point that we're trying to make here is there's been a lot of discussion by our community regarding industry should pay the same as the residents. And what we've been trying to communicate, and maybe we're not doing a great job doing it, but what we're trying to suggest is that if a large user like Niagara uses more water, the more water we sell, the more revenue we receive. That revenue is not put into some account within the MDC. It is used to reduce the overall budget of the MDC, which in turn reduces the water rate for everyone. Do we know, will we know if Niagara will use more water with this economic rate? We don't. I'm not going to try and pretend. I think anybody who tries to pretend that they know the answer is not being honest in the conversation. We do not know if Niagara will use more water. We don't know if some other existing customers will use more water. We do not know if it will recruit other businesses to the MDC district towns and use more water. All we know is it's a tool in our toolbox that every other utility, water utility in Connecticut has at its disposal. So I'm going to go through, and there's been a lot of discussions about if you sit back and wait, you will maybe get to a point where Niagara uses the whole 1.8 million gallons of water per day. We know for a fact that Niagara has a plant that can and has the capacity right now to produce 1.2 million gallons of water per day. That's a fact. We know that, in fact, that they are using spring water as well as part of their business model, but we know that they're built out. They can actually produce 1.2. There was a statement made, they, in 2019, did go above 600,000, about 6 months out of the year, but they were below. The average for the year is under 600,000. They did go above, they did go below. So this slide is really to emphasize a really important point. Why don't you sit back and wait? Someone mentioned $7.7 million. For the lawsuit again from the non-member towns customers. That's not budgeted. We have OPEB expenses that will like all of our towns, will be facing upwards of $5 million per year that we're not budgeting over the next 10 years. Pension, all of these expenses, if we sit back and wait, the rates are going to go through the roof. So here's what happened by sitting back and waiting since 2016. As everyone remembers, Niagara was up and operational basically in December, late December of 2016. So here's what the MDC made in those years. 2017, $440,000, $619, $1 million in 2019. If they were to and could have gone to the 1.8 million gallons per day, here's what our customers lost in those same years. 1.5, on average, $1.5 million per year. That's gone forever. That's water over the dam. So our customers have lost the ability to reduce their rate with $1.5 million in revenue over the last 3 years. As we have been consistent, We have been talking about the fact that this year, if we had this economic development rate and they were to use 1.8 million gallons, the MDC would have received another $1.5 million. The rate, if they were to use that, the rate this year is $3.97 for everyone, including Niagara. The rate for everyone, if Niagara would have used 1.8 million gallons, would have been reduced by approximately 11 cents. So we've been talking a lot about we're giving a break, a discount for one customer. That's not true. That's not fair. That is not the facts. The facts are that by giving one large customer a break, and if they use the 1.8 million gallons, which we do not know if they will, but if they did, everyone that gets MDC water would have a reduction of their rate from $3.97 to $3.85. Now remember, we had lots of discussions in this room with lots of people that were upset about a 14.5% increase. We subsequently dropped that to $3.97, so that made it a 13.5% increase. But we had a lot of discussion about that kind of an increase, and we did everything we could to drop that by 3 cents by cutting Riverfront and Recreation in West Hartford and Bloomfield. So one of the arguments was from residents and from Mr. Silverstone was that the argument was that if we gave, if Niagara used all of the water that they had used in 2019, and we gave them the discount, the MDC would have lost money. And that's an absolutely fair statement. We would have lost a total of $145,000. $25,000 on water and $119,000 on the clean water surcharge. But you can't say if without suggesting that, but if they used all 1.8 million gallons, we would have gained $1.4 million in revenue and reduced the rate for everyone by more than 10 cents. That $25,000 that we lost in revenue, if we used Mr. Silverstone's model, would have been less than 1 cent in increase, actually 1/5 of a cent increase to the water rate if we gave the discount to Niagara. Nick? To try and answer the question, Ms. Rossetti, and I apologize for not answering, I hope I answered it this time. But I believe the question was, assume that Niagara uses all of their water at full rate, the $3.97 like everybody else is paying. What would the revenue be? The revenue is $3,487,000. The clean water surcharge is 3.6, total of $7 million. The rate with no economic development, because of their use, would have been $3.83. This is our comparison. This hasn't changed. We give an economic development rate. The reduction in revenue is about $450,000 between the two. The difference between the clean water revenue is about $2 million, $2.2 million, and the rate is about a penny higher. So this is, I believe this is what Mrs. Rossetti asked for. If Niagara used all of the water with no discount, the rate to everyone would have been $3.83. And with the discount, the rate to everyone is $3.85. I've said this, I've been very consistent. $1 million is approximately 5 cents. $500,000, approximately 2.5 cents. So those numbers match. Nick? There's been a lot of discussion, and I've been personally trying not to make this personal, but I've been very concerned that in our advocacy, there's been a lot of concerns by the public that consumers like Niagara, industrial users, should not pay less. I have not heard, except for Wednesday night, Mr. Silverstone say that, in fact, most utilities do have industrial rates that the industrial users and consuming, commercial users pay less, okay? It's not fair for the MDC's district, with our 8-member towns and our 4 non-member towns, to be handcuffed to be trying to compete within the state of Connecticut when all the other large water utilities in Connecticut have had industrial and commercial rates lower than the residential customers for years. And this is an example that I gave Wednesday night meeting. So I said, let's take Niagara and let's plop Niagara right into the regional water authorities' rate structures as it is. And Mr. Silverstone has argued that he helped develop those economic development rates, the 20% discount for high users. So this is just a synopsis of MDC's rate structure for a residential customer. We've always said, and we've been very consistent, the MDC residents pay less here in the Hartford region than they pay in New Haven. A total bill in Connecticut MDC towns is $497 a year versus $597 in the regional area. The water rates, $3.97 for MDC, just approved this year, and in regional water authority, the residents pay $4.40. Residents in New Haven pay more. If we look at a comparison and we plot Niagara into New Haven without any discounts, New Haven has a regional rate for industrial / commercial economic development, whatever you would like to call it, which is $3.46, almost $1 less than what the residents in New Haven pay. So if we apply the rate structure of Niagara in New Haven compared to in Bloomfield, the revenue that we would receive is approximately $3.5 million with our rate structure, and New Haven would charge them less, would charge them $450,000 less than the MDC would charge. So that $450,000, if they're losing money with Niagara, they obviously are charging somebody else. That's why the residential rates are higher. Let's assume, now we talked about regional. The reason why we're comparing ourselves with regional is because regional is an entity created by the state of Connecticut legislature identical to the MDC. They're a regional authority, identical. They are not, we're not quasi-state agencies. We are a municipal corporation, and we are identical to regional, except regional only produces water. They don't treat wastewater. So if we utilize the economic development rate that the MDC is proposing, now remember, the industrial rate in New Haven is $3.46. But as Mr. Silverstone has argued, he promoted, while he was the CEO at Regional, to develop a economic development rate which was for all new customers, and it would decrease the water rate an additional 20% for 5 years. So that rate goes from the 346 down to 277. So now we're comparing MDC's rate. If we had no discount, we'd be competing, we'd be at 397, and regional would be at 277. $1.20 less. If we apply our rate that we're proposing, our rate becomes for that rate $3.18. And here's the revenue. The MDC's revenue, we would receive $3 million versus $2.4 million from regional. So for anyone to suggest that the MDC is doing something devious, that this has been done by our advocate, which makes me upset for him to not stand up and say to the public that this happens all across the country. Next slide. This is, again, just a comparison of the MDC, Aquarion, Connecticut Water, and Regional These are the economic, the industrial rates, so to speak, and they're all lower than the residential customers for all the other three water utilities, large water utilities in the state of Connecticut. It's not unfair for the MDC to try and compete with the region, with the state of Connecticut. It's impossible for us to compete if we don't have a rate structure similar to Regional's Water Authority. Nikki, one more? And let's make it even worse. I apologize, but one of the comments was, the MDC's rates. Yes, our water rate includes everything I mentioned. In addition, no one else, regional water utility, doesn't have a clean water project that they have to tag onto their water bill. So let's do nothing. If we sit back and wait and do nothing, here's what will happen. In 2020, our combined water rate for a commercial customer with no discount is $3.97, $4.10 for the clean water project, a total of $8.07. And as I mentioned, Regional Water Authority with a 20% discount is $2.77. How can the MDC towns compete with that? 2021, we're assuming a 10% increase in water rate which we've averaged 10% over the last 5 years. 10% increase average over the next 5 years. $9.13 next 2021, and so on. $13.79. How is the MDC towns going to compete with other utilities in Connecticut if we sit back and wait? So with that, Mr. Chairman, that's my presentation.
Okay. Item 8, report from the district council.
No report, Mr. Chairman. We have something at the agenda item 12.
Thank you. Item number 9, Board of Finance consideration and potential action regarding approval of State of Connecticut financing Clean Water Fund number 692-C1. This is an adoption, isn't it? Is there a motion to adopt?
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, this was passed at the Board of Finance on February 19th. I believe it was unanimous.
Discussion. This is a state grant that's been amended. We've had a slight increase in the amount of money. It's just $3,000 about?
No,
300,000.
3 million.
3 million.
On the grant and loan side.
You're getting close.
Couple of zeros.
Let me see the.
Hold on.
Let me see the. This is on the Clean Water Fund. It's an increase from $140,925,166 to $143,917. It's in excess of $3 million from the state of Connecticut. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 10, Committee on MDC Government, consideration and potential action regarding ordinance revision. Is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you.
Alan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Government Committee met last week and passed this out of the committee following a very lively discussion among the commissioners. The motion passed 9-1.
That was a favorable report from the committee.
Yes.
9-1. Further discussion? Ray?
Yeah, I'd ask everyone to vote in favor of this motion. And somebody said some of us are not taking the ratepayers in effect, but I am taking the ratepayers first. The 102,000 ratepayers that we have in the district. This is this will not solve our financial problems. We know we owe $4 million this year to Glastonbury. We know we're $1.4 million short next year in the pension. We have another $1.4 million shortfall in contributions that are going to have to be made up. So there's 2.8 million there, plus the 4. We also know what we figured in the budget. Last year, we had a $2 million shortfall because we sold 2 million gallons less of water than we budgeted. I think this year, we're probably going to have a shortfall looking at the first couple months. We also know we have a large lawsuit, which is on the agenda, we're going to be talking about later in executive session. That possibly could cost, it's going to cost us legal bills, it's going to cost us money. I think we're going to win it. But I know 100% if we do not try to sell more water, because we are a water company, and if we don't look at creative ways in selling more water, we're not going to have a 13% increase. We're going to have what Scott showed up there 5 years out, an 20% increase. This is an economic development plan, I believe, that will sell more water. We're going to get a data center. We're going to get a beer company. We're going to get a water and bottling company. Hopefully, we can bring more economic development into the region. It might be Rocky Hill. And I've already gone to our economic development officer, Ray Carpenter. And he is very happy with this proposal. He said if it's finished and voted on, he would like a copy of it because it's another way of possibly, it's just a little tool of bringing more business into the region. And every little tool helps your economic development officers. So by selling more water, that's the only way we're going to bring the increases down some. Last year, if we had done this 2 years ago, and if Niagara, went up to the 1.8 million, we would have had a 9% increase instead of a 13% increase. Those are huge increases, I agree, but without trying to bring more business into the district, more revenue, sell more water, Scott's shown you over and over. And just one more thing, this has gone through the Water Revenue Subcommittee, passed. It went through the Water Bureau. It passed. It went through Public Works. It passed. It went through government just last week. It passed. This, we've all heard. Most of us are on Water, Public Works. We've heard this over and over. And I don't see any other way that we're going to bring added revenue into the district on a pretty speedy way. This could gear up pretty quick. In 4 months, we could start bringing in a couple $100,000 more of revenue, and I think we need every penny. So I would hope everybody could support this.
Dominic?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Payne, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I've attended all the meetings. I've heard the extensive presentations from the staff. I was present during the public hearing at the meeting of the Committee on MDC Government. I've read all the minutes of the public hearing, and after taking everything into consideration, I will support this economic development rate for the following reasons. The MDC is the MDC is providing a uniform rate for all customers within our 20-mile radius for any type of business industry. Secondly, the MDC is the only water company in the state of Connecticut which does not offer a discounted rate for large consumers, yet the MDC has the largest water reserves in the state, well over 40 billion gallons of water. During the last drought in 2016, the MDC reserves never went below 30 billion gallons. This economic rate is not just for one customer. It will be a tool for our member towns to use to help incentivize businesses from any industry to come to their town. 4, simply put, if the MDC sells more water to large customers, it will decrease the water rate for all customers. The MDC has done a great job managing things by doing more with less. But let's face it, we can only do that for so long. We cannot continue to balance a budget from the reduction of workers in operations and other necessary staff. I believe that would hurt us tremendously in the future. Thus, this economic development rate could, with very little cost, generate us millions of dollars of revenues from many different types of businesses, from different industries, which is absolutely needed. So in conclusion, I believe that this is the first step in selling more water, and I hope the other commissioners agree. Thank you.
Commissioner Avedisian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've also attended the meetings, read all the information, and talked to my town council, town of Windsor. So what I have to say here is they feel that this, listening to the people of Windsor and everything they have to say to the town council, I would have to say we are going to vote no on this rate decrease. I work for the town as their representative, so obviously we're going to go that way. That's what they asked me to do. But the one thing I would like to say is, after listening to all this tonight, we have good people at the MDC here. They work hard. And our CEO, our chairman, and the members here on the commission work tirelessly without any compensation. And what bothers me the most is for anyone to sit here and say that we show disrespect to the people that are talking. I find that very offensive, and this is a personal comment. After listening to some of the things that were said, I think it kind of goes both ways. And it would be good that, and I know there's a lot of emotion in here, but again, what bothers me the most, for a personal matter, is to say that our CEO is getting a bonus, that we're not being transparent. I would ask you to come to the meetings. Julie Allen is every single meeting we have. I don't see anybody else there, only when something like this comes up. So you'll hear the transparency if you come to the meetings, and maybe you would be a little more informed. Thank you.
Commissioner Patel.
I think what we are doing is not understood well. And the reason is, in my opinion, some steps which we have taken in marketing it. For example, if you do any economic analysis, first what you do, develop alternatives. Of course. We didn't do that. Our cost is going up, we are in a raid, we should decide, and with the public input, that, okay, let us sit down, create a committee of outsiders, give them the option to listing the alternatives. One, do nothing. And what happens? Then two, comparative scenarios which you provided with other organizations, what they do. And if we adopt that policy, what happens? And similarly, then with everybody's input, if we create alternatives and then vote us here, then we are, because we understand it. When I got the chart myself yesterday, and I had requested it a long time ago. Unfortunately, mail was a problem back and forth. The point is, if I cannot understand that chart clearly, where we did not clearly stated that what assumptions we made, I have to ask here everybody what assumption we made, that yes, if they reach to maximum purchase. If that's the case, then we should have some ways to state, we are assuming that they will reach to this level. I know nobody has contacted them because we didn't want to have conflict of interest, which is very good. So if we develop those alternatives with the input from public, I think it will be better understood. We are in a business of water, and we sell, and selling the water and raise money, that's the ideal solution. But people are not accepting it. Some people may think, who told you that? Go ahead and sell water this way. They don't reduce our rate. There may be some people that generous, Let them come here and tell us the alternatives. Let city councils, different places, pass a resolution with alternatives. Another thing is, chart was not clear, they could not understand, and I think they never made an effort to understand. I understood it by asking questions, and I did it at the last minute here also. Selling water makes sense, and therefore that's our business. Environmental concern, I'm not totally against, but ladies and gentlemen, we are not charged here as EPA to solve the problem of waters. And you may like or you may not like. You may make any statement you may want to make. This is a national problem, and the scientists and private sector are working at developing alternative plastic, and it will come. But I don't want us to take the lead and become environmentalist on the back of our customers. We have a business, and we have in this business of selling water, as well as making some sense in income and balancing the budget.
Further discussion? Commissioner?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Iono? Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We've allowed the federal government and the state to be absent without leave on this whole issue of supporting the Clean Water Project. That's why we're hurting so much. The Clean Water Project has taken a lot of the money out of the MDC. I don't really see the MDC as a business, because water is a resource that we need to live. I think we should put pressure on the outside to the federal government and the state to get back in here and help us with the infrastructure. I don't think the way to do it is to offer cheaper discount on the water that we're lucky to have in this part of the country. I'm going to have to vote no on this resolution.
Commissioner Godot?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been at the hearings. I thank the public for sending in lots of emails coming last Monday and tonight. Wish you were all here back in December when we were discussing the budget. I was one of 4 that voted against the budget and the 13% rate increase, because it's a lot on the citizens. That being said, there are 2 things that were brought up at the public hearing a week ago, and one of them was how the state of Washington had Senate Bill 6278, which was to ban the bottling or future bottling plants in the state of Washington because of stream flows and what have you. And I would suggest to the citizens that wrote in and have spoke that don't like plastic bottles to go 3 blocks over and talk to your state senator and your state legislature and the governor, because I'm sure they'll listen. It's not up to us to. We're in the business of selling water. The other thing was the conservation plan triggers that was brought up last week, and we have a drought plan that is updated every certain number of years, and at last Wednesday's government meeting, I suggested that we make sure that when that plan is put together in 2021, next year, is that we make sure that the public gets on the front of the list of who gets protected with regard to who has to turn off the spigot first and second, and that the public doesn't have to turn their spigots off. But I believe that we need to sell more water. We need to make more revenue. And the bottom line is, if this doesn't work, we can always undo it, okay? And so I'm going to be voting in favor of this this resolution. Thank you.
Further discussion? Buddy, Commissioner Salemi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to, just for a moment, can respond to some of the comments about, how often folks have spoken to us and how much work they've put into their presentations, which I've certainly listened to over the course of more than 2 years now, and I think that some of the comments have been, there's been a lot of studies, been a lot of work and research that have gone into it, just as we have as commissioners and the staff here at the MDC. But I'm always, concerned that the commentary it seems to be focused on the water rate. And you saw the water rates up there tonight from Connecticut Water Company, from Aquarian, and from Regional Water Authority, all higher than the MDC. $3.97 is still a very good rate. It's a median rate here in Connecticut. It's below the median on a national basis. So the water rate itself, I don't think is a huge issue, but I do understand why, it's become difficult to pay the water bill. So on top of that water rate is the customer service charge, which is $14.95 a month. And on top of that is a sewer customer service charge for about 90,000 of the 102,000 customers of the MDC. And this year we added $1 to that. It was $6. We added $1 to it. So every dollar we add to that is $1,080,000 in revenue. But it doesn't go to the water bureau. That goes the whole $7, which is closer to $8 million, goes to the sewer side of the budget, not the water side of the budget. And then, of course, the thing that concerns me is that the response to the water rate and response to the cost of water for the last few years with the public that's come here and spoken to us, that there's never been a real sustained or coordinated argument about the clean water surcharge. The real problem is the clean water surcharge. If the MDC is in any kind of a debt spiral, like our consumer advocate continues to say, it would be because of the clean water surcharge. It has nothing to do with the water rate, absolutely nothing to do with the water rate. And you think about it, if the clean water surcharge goes to $8 instead of $4.10, what's your water bill going to look like then? And what's my water bill going to look like then? I use probably more than the average person. I use probably a little bit over 100 CCFs a year. So my contribution to clean water surcharge is $4.10 a year. So I've been thinking about ways that we could do something about that for all residential customers, and say if you max out the average, you use 100 CCFs a year, maybe you could stop paying this clean water surcharge at that point. It certainly wouldn't hurt the MDC. That $4.10 does not go to the operating budget. Not one dime of it goes to the operating budget. It's all debt service. The $4.10 is all debt service, so it's not going to change anything for us. So I'm hoping that we can continue this conversation and talk about that at some point and what we might be able to do with that to help not only the customers right now, but in the future. So with respect to that, the discount that we're offering to Niagara includes the discount on the clean water surcharge side. That's correct? So can you explain that? Because we've explained the water side a lot. Can you just explain just a little bit of that? I hope that we can explain how that's going to work, because one of my concerns is that in understanding how Niagara uses this water, so I know Valerie Rossetti said tonight that, the water in the bottle is the lowest cost of anything. The label probably costs more than the water in the bottle, and that's absolutely true, because I worked with Coca-Cola 20 years ago to talk about bottling our water from the MDC if it was possible, and we thought, gee, because the water would be free, it would make us competitive. It doesn't make us competitive. Even if the water was free, it doesn't make us competitive. So, but the point is that about 25% of the water used in the process of bottling is lost. It doesn't go in the bottles. In order to pull the fluoride and other chemicals and minerals, I guess, that might be in the water out before it goes in the bottling process. And Scott, I don't know if they use reverse osmosis over there, because I know Coca-Cola uses it. So, all right, so they use reverse osmosis to pull. Well, by the time the water goes through that process, on the other side of it, it's just wet. There's nothing in the water. It's just H2O, and that's it. It's just wet stuff. But what's left over is all the things you pulled out. That certainly could be reused as gray water. It doesn't have to go down the drain. In other parts of the country, that would automatically have to be used or reused as gray water. What's gray water? You can use it for flushing toilets. And I think you can, for other industrial processes, I think you could even use it for watering, irrigating your lawn, because there's nothing in it. They're not adding anything to it that wouldn't have been there already going out there. And I think that's something that we could work with Niagara if we were to talk to them about these processes. And the last thing I'd say is, Mr. Chairman, is if Niagara had built their building in South Windsor or Glastonbury or Farmington or North Granby, I guess, too, that they would only pay $3.97 a CCF. Clean water surcharge wouldn't be there. Wouldn't even be an issue. So, you know, they aimed at Bloomfield, and I think Bloomfield offered them a tax abatement for a certain number of years. I'm not sure what that deal, what it amounted to. But it is my understanding that as an economic development feature for the town of Bloomfield, that's produced a very large taxpayer for them. I don't know if they're in the top 5. I would assume that they're probably in the top 5. Coca-Cola remains, I think, in the top 5 in East Hartford for taxpayers. So I think that that's an economic development, right? The tax abatement for the years that they were there. I know it's going to end at some point. But I think that's the only thing I think maybe it's not clearly understood, but the clean water surcharge, certainly no one would ever move here to bottle water if they had to pay $8.10 a CCF, so.
Commissioner Buell?
I am the DiMaggio of the MDC, the luckiest guy on the face of the earth.
Where's Garrick?
I am in a room full of smart people who couldn't be more well-intentioned and who are all involved in, to me, the most fascinating and rewarding kind of process, if you will, of providing water. I had a lot of questions when I came to the meeting tonight, and I talked with a number of people earlier this week about various issues, many of which you have brought up more than once. I could probably ghostwrite for Judy and Val. But the one thing that I guess bothered me in a way was the dilemma over not knowing, first of all, not knowing how much water we're going to use, or rather how much water was going to be used, and also you know, how much to charge for it. And I think that the bottom line for me was that you're not going to know this in trying to plan ahead. And Commissioner Sweezy, Commissioner Payne, CEO Jellison really brought home to me that what tipped me into supporting this, and that is that we have to do something, or start at least the process of trying to make this region more attractive to companies who will buy a lot of water. And that was the bottom line for me. And I appreciate all of your efforts and all of your input, and I plan to support this measure.
Is there any further discussion, Commissioner?
Good evening. I'm the representative from Bloomfield, and I've had numerous conversations with council members from Bloomfield, in addition to residents, in addition to town committee members, and trying to explain to them my support for an increase, and then to turn around and support a discount for Niagara, only in return for them to end up with a 10-cent return on their bill, was something that was overwhelmingly unfavorable. And for that reason, from hearing from residents, hearing from council members, and recognizing that in the best-case scenario, residents would only receive a 10-cent decrease on their bill for a few $1 million in discount to Niagara. I can't support this, so I will be voting no.
Andy?
I think the other side of the equation we haven't been talking about that I bring up all the time as someone who has a lot of knowledge about Hartford Hospital is that some of our bigger techs, the bigger users of water, not only aren't thinking about using more water, but they're thinking about moving out of the district so they don't have to pay the clean water charge on top of the water bill. So if we don't incentivize more companies to move here or incentivize people to use more water, then that's just going to drive the price up, as Scott illustrated very clearly. And so if we don't do anything, then we can be sure of one thing, that maybe companies may or may not move here, but people will move out. Companies will move out. So I will be in support as well.
Don?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, a question. Can you reassure us that in order for a business to qualify for the economic development rate, they must be hooked up to both MDC water and MDC sewer?
Yes.
Yeah. We heard tonight, and again, thank you all for coming out. We certainly appreciate your feedback. You know, my senator, Senator Anwar, mentioned drought, and we know that MDC has the most stringent drought guidelines in the state and possibly in the nation. We've also been assured that residential customers will be given first preferential treatment, if you will, as it comes, should a drought ever exist. And certainly we can shore that up better than what it is now. There's a lot of issues. This is a complex issue for me. We've got the water, we've got the environment with the bottles, the plastic bottles. It's interesting that first, certainly the environment with the plastic bottles. Coca-Cola is bottling water in cans now. At least I've been led to believe that. I would urge the water bottling companies in the state to contact DEEP, and maybe the state can do something to encourage some incentives to change their lines to go to cans versus plastic. And everyone at the table knows I'm a numbers guy, and yes, you can present numbers in a lot of ways, and we've seen these numbers presented in a lot of ways. But it all comes down to, again, what we saw tonight, and the numbers are what they are. So from that perspective, it's really no different than a tax abatement. And I doubt very much if any of the member towns have not used tax abatements to encourage businesses to come to their community. I doubt very much if member towns have not used tax abatements to encourage the businesses already existing in their community to expand. Now for us, as MDC, tax abatements are not necessarily a good thing because those dollars come off the tax roll, and the ad valorem fees are increased every time there's a tax abatement given. So I'm a bit taken back that a community would issue a tax abatement to bring a business in and not support a tax abatement to encourage another business, meaning MDC, to generate additional revenue. That being said, you know, I was on the fence on this from the beginning, and I just see no other way around it that it's a tax abatement. Call it any other name you want. And if another water company moved in and plopped itself down right next to Niagara, MDC cannot say, oh, I'm sorry, we're already selling enough water. We're not going to sell you water, or we're going to sell you water, but we're going to jack the price up. We can't do that. So we're going to sell them the water. We have no control over that. But we need to give relief to our customers. And this is one of the directions in which we can do that. So I'm going to be supporting this proposal.
Senator?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to endorse what fellow commissioners from East Hartford have just put out there. I don't think drought is really an issue. And even though our senator, I'm sorry, I have a bad throat too. You got bad ears. I just want to endorse what they said. And our senator, our good senator, who I think he's one of the best senators we have in the legislature. I very much appreciate him being here tonight. I very much appreciate him co-sponsoring the hearing that was held at the Capitol. I'm disappointed that more legislators did not attend that and actually receive the facts as opposed to maybe coming in for 3 or 4 minutes and walking out. As a former senator, I understand that, but I also understand that some of the facts contradicted some of their beliefs, and they didn't want to hear those facts. I think that this is a good plan, and I think it's a start. I think that we should look beyond this in terms of other ways we can sell water, and I think we should look at, I've said this last week in the government committee, I'll say it again, that we should look to some of the ideas that David Silverstone has and perhaps adopt them, even if they're not working elsewhere. They might work for us, who knows, to sell more water. And Commissioner Patel, I like your idea of having, maybe pulling together some body. I mean, I've heard, again and again, I saw it in this morning's paper that we're not transparent, that we're opaque. This is not transparent. This is opaque. This is open. There's nothing about this commission that is not transparent. It is translucent, is what it is. And I like the idea that Commissioner Patel, that there might be some innovative ideas that might come by putting some of the different elements in the room tonight and last week and at the hearing together to brainstorm some of these things. But I have to say one other thing. Commissioner Salemi and I were talking about, somebody said throwaway bottles. This is a problem, and this bothers me. I mean, our charge here, as Commissioner Gardo said, we're a water, and others have said, we're a water company. We can't take on the whole environment. On the other hand, we can't be ignorant of the entire environment either. So I am concerned about plastic. But the place to deal with that issue is not here. It's about 3 blocks due west. If anybody saw the article in yesterday's Hartford Courant, it was a very good article. It was in the community section, the town section. And it was coming out of Willimantic, but it was talking about the waste disposal problems in the state of Connecticut. Basically, we have a mess. It's not being dealt with, and plastic is recyclable. Plastic can be recycled. We have problems with cleanliness. Nobody wants it because our people and the way we collect it it's not divided into enough categories. That may raise some expenses. And look at the nickel deposit on a bottle. That was put in almost 40 years ago. So that would be like a nickel 40 years ago. That's about 20 cents now. But we're not charging 20 cents. So we really need to ask our legislators, and I did. As Senator Anwar was leaving, I said, look, you guys have got to deal with this. This is a major problem that we have, not just for MDC, but we have to deal with the waste management problem and the plastics problem. It's not something we can just totally ignore. But bottom line is, I'm voting for this. This is good economic development. I wouldn't call it a tax abatement because it's not a tax, but it is an abatement on part of the fee. And it's part of what we need to do to move ahead and to change the way we're doing business. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, for a brief, you have, I'm sorry, he's spoken. Go ahead, Commissioner Patel.
Since I joined MDC, everywhere I go, I ask questions about water rates. And everywhere answer I got, water over anywhere else where I went was more expensive. I came back from Florida. I asked the same question in 3 or 4 different communities, and answer was, we are cheaper, and our water is better. So now, if we can revisit, let's make the decision today what we have to do, and at the same time, simultaneously, let's talk about different alternative ways how we can control the abuse it is. We have power to even eliminate this rate if we wish to. Let's confirm it, and that is a separate meeting we should talk at.
That's it. Commissioner, wait a minute, have you spoken yet? Oh. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the second time, if I may. I had the privilege of chairing the public hearing and heard, I'm going to say about 60 or 70 people get up, and I certainly heard what they said. And clearly, the comments were filled with passion and emotion and opinion, strong opinion, which is all fine. Beyond that, though, I did look at the written comments, 100 pages of written comments. And what struck me the most was not, again, the passion and emotion of people who will take on the issue and bring their opinion forward. All good stuff, no question. But what rang true was that beyond the water rate issue by itself, in other words, those folks who said, I don't want my rates to go up, I understand that perfectly well. But the underlying issue was plastic bottles. And that's not our issue, as several commissioners already said. And so we were constantly in that situation where, well, if we don't take on this industry and try and change their culture, we're not environmentalists and we're not conservationists and so forth and so on. I don't think you can find many more environmentally concerned folks than those on this board. And so we all understand that we have a limited resource, but at the same time, we also have a situation where we have to dump a surplus of that. So anytime we're dumping a surplus, we have to think about how could we sell that water, because there's no reason just to dump it into the Farmington River. So there's that situation that goes well beyond coming before the MDC and sort of complaining about the cost of water. I think it's been clearly stated and demonstrated that the quality of our water and the price of our water can't be beat anywhere. And so we have to look at that as well and balance that at the same time with trying to be sure that this corporation actually continues in a responsible financial way. So the proposal that we're voting on tonight isn't going to be set in stone. It's going to be effective once, if and when it's passed. It doesn't mean it can't be changed. It doesn't mean it can't be modified. So there's that as well. And sometimes we get ourselves in a pickle where we think, well, if we vote for it, that's it, it's over. No, this is not an issue that's over at all. And as I read through those comments, the other thing that occurred to me was the energy that was exhibited by the Save Our Water and River Alliance, that energy could be directed more productively, as we've stated several times now, 3 blocks up the hill. Because those folks are holding up $13 million in payments from DEEP. Now, we all know that the $13 million would go a long way in doing a lot, whether it's the rate of the water that we sell or other ways. So I would just like to see us point our issue in the right direction. Our issue tonight is whether we want to move this discount forward. I did report before that the government committee, which I happen to chair, had that discussion, had a lengthy discussion, had some public input, which was very good at that meeting, and the vote was 9-1. So with that, we moved it to this board, and we should move it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Taylor.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think this is all very interesting, and I guess I'm concerned about a couple of things. One, we should not forget that our infrastructure was pretty much financed by the federal government, 70 to 80%. In other words, your local community picked up about 30 to 20% of the tab. That's one of the problems that we're facing today, is that the federal government got out of that business. And so basically, the local community's got to carry the freight. Now, think about that for a minute. Probably 100,000 or fewer people are paying essentially for the Clean Water Project in terms of funding the bonds that were issued to carry on that project. Now, you know, the interesting thing about that, we're out at what, about $2 billion? And I think, to respond to a comment, that project is pretty much on budget. It is on schedule. There has not been a whiff of scandal. And I think people should remember, the feds have been all over this place. You know, the FBI has waltzed in here and it's waltzed out because it hasn't been able to find anything. And I think that's a reflection, basically, of the caliber of the people that are here, and more particularly the leadership. So I think, you know, we need to be thoughtful and careful. I don't view this as basically being something, as our fellow Commissioner Hoffman has said, that this is cast in stone. I think this is a work in progress. We look at it. We think about it. We're in the midst of some paradigm shifts. In the old days, essentially, residents essentially paid more for their water, and there were substantial discounts for the commercial and industrial areas. That's just standard in the industry. Even if you look at most of the literature, what is starting to come up is a discussion of economic rates. And people are starting to look at and discuss this whole notion of should we have a differential billing rate. But that's going to take a lot of thought. And, you know, once again, it's one of these things in theory that may not always work out in well as practice that we have to contend with. And the one thing I think that people need to understand, we're running a business here. Yeah, it's a water company. And if we don't cover our expenses, we consume this company. So I basically will vote for this resolution.
Are there any further, is there any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman? I will be supporting this resolution. We are in the business of selling water, and as Commissioner Sweezy says, until we find more attractive ways to attract more water companies in here where we can get more money, we need to do this. And it's not set in stone. So I will be supporting this resolution, this ordinance. Thank you.
Are there further discussion? No further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
You want to raise your hands on the nose?
Iono, Avedisian, Lester, and Magnan as the noes.
What's the count? Motion passed. Item number 11.
That's good.
Personnel, Pension, and Insurance Committee, consideration and potential action regarding appointment of district counsel, possible executive session. Is there an executive session?
So make a motion, we go into executive session.
Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Motion to come out of.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to come out of executive session. We are now back in regular session. We have a motion before us in the appointment of district counsel.
So move the resolution.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All right, we'll move to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, congratulations, Mr. Stone.
Be nice to have district council in here.
First second on the job and you're late.
Buddy wants your parking spot.
Yeah, the parking space.
Yeah.
You get your 40 hours this week.
She
I'm
wants to
figuring
up her
it out.
credit limit.
Okay, moving on to item number 12. Do we need an executive session on this, Mr. Counsel?
Unfortunately, you do, yes.
All right, can we have a motion, please?
So we go into executive session, Cinderella MDC.
Who do we need in the room?
Kelly Shane and Chris Martin, that's it.
Okay, we have a motion to come out of executive session, please.
So moved.
Second, all right. And we also have that motion.
This is it?
Item number 13, opportunity for general public comments. Item number 14, commissioner question and comments.
Yeah, I have one.
Yes, sir.
I'm very offended by today's Hartford Courant article. Senator Lesser from Middletown, in there, he made a remark that the citizens, where I wrote it down somewhere, okay.
This one here?
The citizens don't even know who the commissioners are. Well, I'll tell you, in Rocky Hill, I'll beat them 5-1. They know who I am. And I'm sure Senator Camilleri, Mayor Camilleri, the people in Weathersfield know him better than we know the senator. You got a mayor there that knows more people. You got Dominic Payne. We can go right around the table. I don't know everybody here, okay? I mean, what their official. I've been elected in Rocky Hill for 50 years. I've been on the council for 16 years. This guy, he's never called me once to ask me my opinions. I mean, I'd have a coffee with anybody, you know, and we can agree, we can disagree. Commissioner Curry, we disagree, but we get along, you know? And we don't disagree on everything, but we do disagree, but we still, you know, we can talk about it. This guy, I'm really offended when you have a state senator to make those kind of remarks. And I wish he was here tonight, because I would have told him to his face.
To his face,
You know, I'm in front of the town council quite a few times a year, and they all know me. The people in church know me. There's thousands of people where I go to a Catholic church. I mean, I'm active in the Elks Club. To say they don't know me is something, the guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
I sent him the email
Why don't we get
3
recognized by
weeks
the
ago,
chair?
asking him to sit down and talk about
I
it.
guess not.
Never got the response back.
It's not
And
mandatory.
didn't hear from him at all. I said, if not, at least send me the text message. Nothing. I informed my colleague here too, from the representative from Newington. This guy is loose cannon. I mean, we have to respect him for his position. But if he continues on this path, it's not good for anybody.
Well, I think you guys should reach out to him and talk to him as constituents, but I think we felt tonight that some people were saying things we didn't agree with about us and our organization, and I think Matt deserves the opportunity to defend himself to you guys.
All he's got to do is call me. I'm a commissioner from Rocky Hill. He's talking about commissioners without talking to
I'm
us.
with
That's
ya.
all I'm saying. I'd be happy to talk to him anytime.
Commissioner Curry?
And this is one thing we agree on, because I've got the same notes. You know, he's talking, you know, he's just throwing stuff against the wall, seeing if it'll stick, and it's not true. He's talking about, you know, questioning whether we should be audited. We're audited by two of the best firms in the nation. He's questioning about ethics. He's questioning, I mean, you know, it's just, it really leaves a bad taste.
Commissioner LeBeau?
I'm going to change the subject.
Okay.
Something even less, even more depressing, actually. So I want to direct this to the CEO. Are we making plans for contingencies regarding the coronavirus?
Good question.
And I'm particularly concerned about, we started having a lot of sickness.
Mike.
I always forget. Sorry. I was asking whether we're making plans for contingencies. I've had 13 operations on my throat, and it's nothing to do with the current coronavirus that I have. I came back from Hawaii last week, but there was nothing on the cruise ship I was on. So are we making plans for contingencies? And I'm particularly concerned about if there's some major shutdowns. And I'm, you know, doing some research going back to 1918 and the Spanish flu. And if anybody's watching Pandemic on Netflix, which is a kind of a it's not a scary movie, it's actually a documentary about what was made and was just put out about it 4 weeks ago, just before this thing started hitting. It's some pretty serious things could happen in terms of the breakdown of society. There were, in 1918, there were.
Is there a question there, Gary?
Yeah, there is. There is. So I actually asked it. I just continue it. So it's like, basically, some basic services were shut down.
Sure.
Including electricity. Water kind of runs itself, but it doesn't. We're still going to need some kind of a skeleton crew or whatever. And are you looking at that and planning for that?
Sure. So
Thank you.
let's just
Sorry
talk
for
about,
going. Thank you, Don.
the obvious, right? So if there was any kind of pandemic, whether it's the coronavirus or something else, the MDC has, and we've created over the years, we have emergency action plans for all of our the mechanical components of providing service. For example, we know exactly, if you pick the hospitals and you pick the convalescent homes, we know exactly what and where to shut water off when necessary. We work with our hospitals. Our staff know, I used to personally know this because I was a COO at the time, but we created procedures and policies for the hospitals, for the elderly homes. I just met with the three other CEOs, Connecticut Water, Regional, and Aquarion Friday, and that was one of our topics about what we need to do. We need to work with DPH. Obviously, we take direction. We're not the, although we have our own health and safety officers, department, and they work closely with our staff. They're constantly sending out emails to communicate. Whether it's 90-degree weather during the summer, or whether it's the flu season, wash your hands, all those good things. So we have procedures internally to communicate with our customers. We have emergency procedures with our stakeholders if and when we had to do something, whatever that might be, in shutting down infrastructure or coordinating with the healthcare industry. We work very closely with DPH on those kinds of issues, and I don't believe the DPH has had any kind of seminar to date associated with the coronavirus, but we'll be working with them, and I'll make a call to them tomorrow. Thank you.
Commissioner Salemi?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I actually have been in touch with a resident in East Hartford who has an issue with sewer lateral, and we've put in place a program not long ago where the MDC will finance the reconstruction or repair or major repair or reconstruction of water and sewer laterals that go to your house. They're not our property, they're the property of the property owner, but we will help finance that. And I don't know if it's a 15-year program or 20-year program, but in that program, we've requested that the homeowner put down a down payment, something like a 10% down payment. And for the next Water Bureau and Public Works meetings, John has told me that we're going to have this issue on the agenda, so that, and I won't be able to be at that one. It's going to be March 25th, and I'm going to be away. But I just want to say that I think with a request from a property owner and some sort of indication that there's financial hardship in coming up with the 10% down payment, the connection is to the property, and and the loan is paid as part of your regular water bill. It's in the water bill, right? It's going to be part of the regular water bill. So it goes with the property anyway. So it's kind of like a revenue bond. There's money coming in to pay for that. So I would ask that you support the idea that with this request and some, indication of financial hardship, that we could waive, and that we'd have to do it that way, that we would waive a down payment on a program. So, yeah, that's.
We're going to propose is that as long as the customer is in good standing, that we would waive the 10%.
Yeah, that's something like that. But I would people appreciate the fact that there might be someone who, over time, in payments spread out over 20 years, can handle, let's say, $6,000. The average is around $6,000
Right.
or something. Can handle $6,000 over a 20-year period with a low interest rate, but maybe can't come up with $600,
Right.
right now. So.
Commissioner Taylor?
Yeah, one of the things I think we probably should think about doing is we probably need to be looking at alternative billing methods in terms of rate structure, or see what the current or development thinking is, so that essentially we can have a foundation upon which to discuss things
Oh, that's right.
with regard to the issues that are popping up there.
Right. Yep.
So I would just recommend if, at some point, if we can somewhere find, some literature that can be distributed to the commissioners, and we can read it, and at some point maybe discuss it in Water Bureau or Finance or somewhere.
And Commissioner, you have requested looking at other options like block rates. So we are going to, once we get through some of these critical issues, bring back to the commission some opportunities of what could we do in addition to the economic development rate that was passed tonight. Commissioner Salemi and others have said, and we know that the clean water surcharge is devastating to everyone. And so we've got to find a solution that that can benefit everyone. So I agree with you. We will be looking at that.
Anybody else? Oh, yes. Oh,
Under advice of counsel, I'm going to change my status to the Lou Gehrig of the MDC.
all right, with that, do we have a motion?
Move adjournment.
All right, we're adjourned. Have a good evening.
You are too close.